Hello, realtor friends in Toronto. Can't wait to come see you. We're going to be talking about freedom. And if you're like me, you got into this business because you wanted freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationships, and ultimately a great freedom of purpose. So we're going to be talking about how you can build that in your business and how we've been able to do that and all the ups and downs along the way. Can't wait to see you there. Register now and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, hello there. I am Carlos, your Market Center Tech Trainer for KVD Advantage, KW Energy, and KW Experience, yet again with another KW Sessions. And today we have a very, 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 very special guest. There needs no further introduction. We have Mr. Sandy Mackay. Sandy, take it away.
Thanks, Carlos. Awesome work with the video. I think if that was you or your team putting that together, that was I was in it, but you did all the work behind that, so that was great. Like I said, great to see everyone. Some awesome looking faces here, and people I haven't seen in a while. So really grateful for you all to come out and join this session, and hopefully we can have some great conversations here over the next hour. I do have a presentation to work through. I'd love to see some active participation or some cameras on, and we create some good conversations. Hopefully, I feel we learn best that way. So feel free to, as I go about, engage or raise your digital hand if you want, and this presentation works into a few different sections, so we can chat about each of them as we go and do some Q&A at some points throughout, rather than just listen to me ramble on for the whole time. I'm going to just share my screen here so I can get my presentation up. We can all see this?
Yep, we can see it.
It should work well. I think I'm more used to working with PDFs or PowerPoints. For some reason, we're working with a PDF today. So might look slightly different, but as long as we can see it, it should work. And I think much of the value will be in just maybe words I say, but more so conversations we have throughout. So like I said, love for some participation here, and then love to hear some questions if you have any. I'll start out with just a little bit about me and where I've come from, etc., and kind of the purpose of this whole tour that we've been going on. I've been around in some areas in person, some digitally here in the last couple of weeks, doing this presentation and having some great conversations with agents from KW and other brokerages, and really talking about building freedom in your businesses. I think most people get into this business, and maybe you can raise your hand or acknowledge the fact if you got into this business because you wanted more freedom in your life. A lot of times that's the reason, whether that be money or maybe time freedom. Eventually we can all go do what I know Larry loves to do, is hang out in Arizona for half the year, which is a great purpose and a mission to build towards. So unfortunately, it doesn't usually start out that way. And there's a lot of work that goes into building that sort of time freedom and money freedom that allows someone to do that. So we're going to talk about little tips I've learned along the way in what we've built out. A few things around me is I'm a husband, son, brother, real estate entrepreneur. I'm a realtor, but I always say a real estate entrepreneur or a real estate business owner, because much of the conversation here will be around that and how that mindset of a business owner versus a realtor, and what the differences are in that. I used to be a golf pro. That was where my only real other career of any kind was in that for a couple of years. I lived in Australia for 3 years. That was my after university sort of thing, was teaching golf, and a lot harder to make good money and live a great life in that industry, I found out, unless you're really making it big and playing on the tours, etc., which I wasn't that good. So kind of got a little bit sick of that, I guess, at a pretty quick time frame. And I moved back to Canada and didn't really have much of a career path, was odd jobs here and there. Eventually my wife, who was actually a former Keller Williams team leader, She wasn't at the time, but she hired me for a different role. She was looking for it in another industry. We did like event design, setup, etc. She hired me for that, which is her favorite story of how we met. And then we both got into the real estate investment side of things. We like a lot of people I know in the investment real estate world read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is a great book if you haven't read that. For any realtor or any business owner or entrepreneur to read. Changed our mindset completely. I would have been 26-ish at the time, years old. And yeah, totally changed the path of our lives, which was, I'm really happy that we came across that book and changed the way we were looking at things, because really changed our mind from thinking like a employee to business owner, or in our cases, sometimes self-employed to business owner. A lot of us as realtors are often self-employed, which is great. Yet it's a different mindset to go to a business owner versus working in your business every single day. More on the business type of activities is what a lot of us probably need to work towards if we want to build a true business. And so we'll talk a bit about that. But I'm also I started a real estate podcast back in 2014. Once we started getting into the real estate investment side of things, and we had no money. So when I say investments, it's really creative investments. And finding ways to buy properties with little or no money, brought a lot of partnerships in and things like that. We started a podcast with one of your realtors out in KW Energy, Rob Brake, who was not with KW for many years. Eventually, I think somehow we got him across the line. But we started that podcast 7.5 years ago, just sharing information around investments and how we could build more wealth through that. And we had no intention of making it into a real estate lead generation system for our businesses. Definitely turned into that, although I'll touch on that in a bit. It took a couple of years before anything really happened there, but we shared a lot of information, and eventually long-term lead generation out of that has been amazing. I think it's still the #1 real estate investment podcast in Canada. We got over 2 million downloads. Been lots of content. If you want to look that up, you can hear a lot of my story throughout that, because when we started that, like I said, zero money or businesses of any kind. And we've grown some things since then. We own 50 plus properties. A lot of them are in Hamilton. I actually own one in Oshawa. So if anyone's living in Oshawa there, I own one on, what's the road? Jasper Avenue, down below the 401 there, which at the time was, that was actually our second or third property we ever bought. I used to own a place on Athol, very first property I ever purchased on Athol Street. We don't own it now, so I kind of forget that. Athol Street East, I guess it would have been. And very, very first property we ever purchased was that. And we bought it with money we earned from a wholesale deal, which we creatively came up with 20 grand or 25 grand. We had 5 grand, the deal that we did wholesaling, which was basically flipping a contract to purchase a property. We weren't realtors at the time. And we did that and made 20 grand and bought that property on Athol. And there was a duplex. We owned it for a few years, ended up selling it because we were buying a personal home in Hamilton, and basically funded our purchase of our personal home, our first home that we were living in, my wife and I together, in Hamilton from that property. So just a interesting thing around Oshawa. I actually grew up in Uxbridge most of my life, so north of some of you, not too far away. And then we moved up to Hamilton 7 years ago. Once we got into the realtor world, joined up with a team, and I was a buyer's agent on a team for 2 years. And my wife got the opportunity to be a TL at the time, brand new office opening in Hamilton. No idea what that meant, but I said, I don't think these offers come up very often. You might as well take it and see how this goes. And it's led to some awesome things in KW world. A lot of it just learning around being business owners and the ways to build businesses. I learned so much being around Keller Williams and learning about other people and what they're doing. And my wife as well. She's not working within the realtor world anymore, but she runs our property management company, Executive Properties, which we manage ourselves, our own units, and other clients and people's properties, primarily Hamilton based. We're actually expanding it to London right now as well. I missed a point there. I'm the OP of Keller Williams Legacies. We opened that earlier this year, January. And so that was fun. In COVID, we launched the new office, which was great. And built that up. And then we have a construction company and a landscaping company. I've started other companies along the way in the last 7 years and they're not on this list because they failed or they're in the early phases. So I've definitely screwed some things up along the way. These are the companies that are still going pretty strong and running well. So we kind of built a lot of our strategies around what we needed in our investment business, which is why I got into this space in the first place. I don't do a whole lot of like myself investments. We invest in real estate a lot still, but I don't personally do a lot of the work there. I guess I really started to gravitate towards the realtor side. And that's why we launched the office there, is I really get excited about working with realtors and helping them build bigger lives and businesses. And sometimes that segues into buying rental properties. And we'll touch a bit on that in the wealth portion here. But we're going to go through a few different categories of freedom and what you can build in your life. And it all ties in with the realtor side of things. We're going to talk a little bit about really, really quickly health. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but I think it's really important to help us be better leaders, is to feel energetic and vibrant. It helps for sure. So touch on that just quickly. And then we'll do a lot around money, more freedom of money and wealth, time, relationships, and purpose. Those are kind of our core categories to go over here throughout the call. And so I'll give you a quick background too, more so on my team, and you can ask as many questions as you want around this too, is how our teams looked. So like I said, I was a buyer's agent for 2 years on a great team. Best decision I ever made was to join that team at the time. Learned so much in the 2 years I was on the team. I'm always a pretty big proponent of people joining teams once they, at least at the beginning, once they get into real estate, and you know, if the opportunity is there to grow with the team, then why not keep going with it? I was on a team, great experience. I learned so much, and allowed us to really, once we got out of business there, was you know, my intention was to start grow a team, and that was from day one. 2016 there was with that intention, and I skipped over a lot of failures that I probably would have had if I started on my own. But I learned through the other team some of the good and bad of what to do in growing a team, and really helped us go faster. And so we've you can see a bit of the timeline there. We've kind of grown around maybe 30% per year overall. At times, definitely between 2017 and 19, screwed up a whole bunch of stuff and hired a whole bunch of wrong people, and not necessarily wrong people, but wrong people at the time for where our business was at, and we weren't quite in alignment. And really wanted to grow. I guess got caught up in maybe more of a competitive mindset and wanted to grow too fast, and lost the money at times, and got away from the models ultimately that KW teaches a lot, and you know, really learned over time that it's best to stick with those models as much as possible, and then throw your creativeness down the line on it. But you can see we kind of went from 27 units the first year. In that first year, I hired a assistant. It took me about 6 months. It was a really slow process. I really used the whole recruit select process at that time, KPA and career visioning process. You would know it of it now. And made a good hire at the time for sure. And then also had a buyer's agent that came on board that year. I was doing a lot of business from my podcast at the time. So like I said, the podcast we started 2014. It really started to take off in 2016, which is partially what gave me some confidence to go on my own and launch our team. But it took 2 years, which was a lesson that I think about a lot now throughout our businesses, is you know, what is your long-term lead gen strategy? And I'll talk about that a bit more as we go. But that was always my long-term strategy. I was very big cold caller as well, because I moved to Hamilton and didn't know anybody. I knew my wife, and I knew people that I met that were also realtors, and I knew the team lead I was working with at the time. That was basically it. So I had to meet people somehow. Cold calling was a great way to do it fast, and connect with people that I didn't know. And so we built the business really around that. That was kind of my short-term strategy, was cold calling and getting into conversations with people. And then the podcast was generating some money from the GTA primarily, where I had some connections, and we're bringing them out. Hamilton was a great investment town, and it still is. And it was really, really popular and growing in popularity as we moved out there in 2014. So we built the business really around that. And then over the years, kind of stuck with those same models for the most part. We've dabbled into a lot more different strategies, a lot of online stuff now, of course. And then in 2020, 19, we brought on, sorry, 2018 actually brought on our, again, kind of going too fast here, brought on our first expansion partner, our first attempt at that. Bo Spencer and his team, who were not too far away from us, which was somewhat correct in doing it that way. We didn't venture too far away, but they were in the Burlington area primarily, Flamborough, Burlington, if you know that area. And eventually we brought him on, and their small team, they had a few agents, and screwed up a lot of things with growing that too fast, and didn't have the right financial model in place, and screwed it all up. But Bo, thankfully, realized that we were doing a lot of things wrong and said, hey, I can come help with this. And he's now actually our we'll call him director of operations. He's kind of transitioning into a different role with us soon, but he's realtor, has been in the business for 13 years and really brought a lot of experience to our team and helping it operationally grow, because I'm not very good operationally. I'm visionary type that can focus on big picture, but not get into the details too much. So he really helped us fine tune some things. We got out of business with a lot of people, unfortunately or fortunately, but mostly realtors, because we really were hiring almost anybody that thought that they wanted to join us for about a year and a half there. We had about the same amount of agents then that we have now, which is about 20. And we were all in Hamilton at that point, or all around Hamilton. Now we're in a few different markets with some expansion teams doing it, I think, a little more properly. But we went backwards quite a bit. We cut our team down to about half, and then started selling more units, funnily enough, because we had people that were more engaged and they were in right alignment with us, and we built it up to where we are now. So 269 units last year, just under 3 million, which is kind of annoying, and we'll be a little over, hopefully a little over 5 by the end of this year, and 300 plus units there. One thing I'm really happy about in the last year is we've actually brought up, and I'm sure your commission are getting pushed down a bit where you're working in, mostly everywhere is, and we actually brought our average commission on the listing side from just 2.2 last year. We're up to almost 2.8 this year in average commission. So I'm pretty proud of that, because we work a lot on scripting, and it's one of the core things our team does every day is script and practice with each other. And we take a lot of listings at 3% on the listing side. And I'm pretty happy with that, because that's something that's really allowed us. You can see the commission amount. We haven't sold a whole bunch more units, or we're not on track to sell a whole bunch more units this year, but we're certainly making a lot more money. Partially the market's obviously helped with that, but it's a lot to do with our average commission going up. We kind of touched on this. These are just the points I'll talk about here throughout: health, money, time, relationships, and purpose. And so, like I said, really briefly, just health side. We do, I've been ups and downs with health. That's why I kind of think it's important. And I've really thought about this during COVID, is the importance of feeding your brain and body with good stuff daily. As I've been more along the leadership path, and having more people working with me or around me daily, I've really seen the benefits of that and the impact it can have. We've started doing like fitness contests on our team, and months of accountability in our groups that we chat in. It's really, I think, created more energy and excitement around working together as a team. Something we're doing this month is we have to go out. We do a contest every month of some sort within our team, and give away prizes and whatnot. So this month it's around getting outdoors and being active 20 minutes every day. So they get a entry into the draw every time they go out. So something that holds me accountable too, and them to doing activities. And I think it just creates a way better environment and energy amongst the team. People are, you show up at work after getting and moving around a bit, you're ready to go, and you're a lot more energetic. So we focus on that. I Miracle Morning, if you've ever read that book, Hal Elrod. I was at one point really, really engaged in that. I'm off and on with really sticking to those activities that he promotes in that book, which is journaling, affirmations, exercise, visualization, and probably missing a couple there. But I really do focus on that in the morning. I do every day almost get out and exercise early on in the morning. I usually read a book at the same time. I read 1 or 2 books a week. Often because I listen to them. I don't read them. I listen, and I can get 45 minutes to an hour in before I start every day, basically. So it's really easy to get through books in that case. Depending how long they are, you can get through one in 3 to 4 days sometimes. And I think it's pretty important to feed your mind. It gets my mind working before I show up to the office and start actually my realtor or business activities. Just gets your mind thinking and gets things going, and it feeds it with healthy knowledge. So I think it's important to do that. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time there because I think people understand it, and I'm not a health expert by any means. But I do think it's important to living a big life and creating a big business is that you're living fairly healthy. And it's consistent effort. So I'll go through some myths and truths that I've learned over the years in this as we go. Living healthy seems like a lot of work sometimes. I think it's pretty simple. It just need to do something small every day. More exciting stuff, money, where I'm sure a lot of people wanted this when they got into business, was creating more money in your life. And this graph on the right, you can see the path of money, which is something that Gary, I think Gary created it. This is where I got it from. It just shows where the money kind of flows in life and how you can create more money in your life. One thing that realtors tend to focus a little too much on is earning great high incomes, which is part of the equation. And yet I always thought, and I think it's mainly that going back to that book that I mentioned at the start, Rich Dad Poor Dad, I really focus a lot more on passive income versus active income. And the two top boxes there, you can see human capital or capital assets. Human capital, meaning you work for money, which is a lot of us are doing in some way, shape, or form every day. But that requires you to work for it every day, right? And capital assets and building up assets is a way that you get money working for yourself passively, or more passively at least, so that you get to choose where you get to spend your time, and you don't necessarily have to spend your time in the business every day, but you can go do other things in life or create other businesses and other income opportunities and passive wealth streams. So I kind of got into the real estate thinking that way. I'd learned a heck of a lot about that around my first team I was on. And that's why I joined that team with Mark Loeffler, if we know him. I worked with him for 2 years because he was about my age now, 35, and he was, in my mind at the time, just so far beyond in his wealth building, and I couldn't imagine doing all that stuff he was doing, but I wanted to soak up that knowledge and learn from him and do that. So I became a bit of a product of hanging around him for a bunch of years. And he was all about passive income as well, and buying real estate, treating everything like a business. And you can see how the money flow. I'll just go through the chart here quickly. Both avenues create some form of cash flow for you. And then the next three boxes are color coded differently because it's very, very simple to spend money. We're all good at the orangey brown colored ones there. Spending money, easy. We can spend that very simply. We're not too bad at holding it. It's pretty easy. Saving money, it's not very complex. Everyone knows how to do that. Save it for a rainy day. Donating it, Keller Williams world especially, we're amazing at donating money. And a lot of us do it from our checks. Yeah, investing is something that's often very interesting, like weird. There's so many different ways to do it. Nobody knows the right path. Everyone we know is doing something a little different. The one thing I'll just say on it is we're all realtors. We have insider access to information around trading real estate. And I'm always boggled by realtors who are not at least considering buying one or more real estate investment properties for themselves in their careers. I think that's, if you ever want to build wealth in life, you need to invest in something. Ever since money was not ever since, I guess it was 81, I think, where they changed it off the gold standard. Ever since that, you need to be investing because you're by holding it, you're losing money. So you need to invest in something. I think real estate's the easiest choice for us all because we know so much about it already. And like I said, we kind of have insider access to information that the general public doesn't. And so it's pretty simple to buy real estate. You buy a piece of property and let it, if you have a long-term outlook, put some tenants in it, hire a property management company to make it really easy, and let it ride. So it's very simple in general, but we always get boggled down in the details. And so I think that's why we skip the investment part a lot of times, is because it seems really complex. and just like the health side of things, it just really takes a little bit of consistency and learning a little bit more every day until you actually know enough to take action, and then taking action and doing it. There's a few more boxes as you go down there. You can lend or own. I'm more along the own side of that typically. And as you go down, active or passive, and then they create financial returns that goes back up into capital assets. I personally really focus on just buying businesses or running businesses or starting them, and then real estate. I don't do too much else at all in terms of investments. I always get somewhat interested and intrigued, and then I go, well, I know real estate, I know businesses, let's just do those and stick to those. So I try and simplify that as much as possible rather than get caught up in the million different ideas that are out there to build wealth. One thing that I'd love to know some feedback on, and maybe we can raise our hands in this, is who currently or has in the past or is currently filling out a net worth tracker for themselves once a year at least. Can't see anyone without their photos on, but we see a few hands. Okay, a couple of them. One thing that Gary Keller talks about, the MRA has it in there, is a budget model, right? And filling out a budget. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I've had a hard time doing that when I got into real estate. Like I said, I'm not very detail oriented, and going and looking at details of budgets is not a fun thing for me to do. Thankfully, I have some better people around me that can do that now, but it was never a fun thing. Yet filling out a net worth tracker is actually a lot more fun. Budgets to me seem like expenses and cutting stuff, and it's like taking away things, whereas net worth is all about how do we make that number bigger, that net number bigger, and it seems a lot more abundantly and expansive thinking to me. So I was always excited about filling out a net worth tracker, and it's really quite simple. There's not a whole bunch of complexity to it, and once you've started it and you do it once, it takes 10-15 minutes to go through it and adjust numbers every quarter or 6 months. I do it every 6 months for sure, sometimes every quarter, depending on if there's some big things changing in my life. I usually get excited and I'll do it every quarter. But at least once a year. I've done it for about 5 years, and we do it with everybody on our team. So I go through it with them every 6 months, and we help them just find gaps there or find opportunities to make that number bigger. And it's exciting typically to see that grow. And in running businesses too, if you have anyone you're leading and you talk about this stuff with them, I've learned you can really screw up a lot of things in leading people. Yet if their net worth number has gone up double, let's say, in a year, you can get away with a lot of screw ups. And that's because you're making a big impact on their life, and helping them build wealth is a big impact, because there's so many different things that come from that. One other question on that, for the ones that I can see on video at least, or just raise your hand again. Who has their real estate business, or if you were to fill out your net worth tracker today, you'd put your real estate business on it? Your realtor business.
I would not.
I don't see any hands, which is what I expected, because almost no realtors that I know put it on there, which I always find interesting. Which to me, if you're not putting it on there, I think that's an opportunity to probably think a little more like a business owner, because if you're going to be a business owner, why would it not go on your net worth statement, right? And that's kind of the same way I think about any business. If you're going to run a business, and if you don't want to be a business owner in the real estate world, that's fine. I guess it wouldn't go on there. But if you want to treat it like a business and run a business and get it to be a point where it can create some consistent passive income, you're going to want to put it on there on your net worth statement. And if nothing else, even if you don't see it as a business today, it starts to get your mind more towards that side of thinking like a business owner. So even if you put it on there and you don't know what it's worth, or you think it's only worth $10 or $100, it's worth putting it on there, because it now instantly changes your mindset to, that's a business of mine that I own now, versus just an income stream of some sort that I have to show up and work at every day.
Sandy, can I ask a question?
Yeah, for sure.
Or do you want me to type it in?
I was actually going to take questions in like 2 seconds here.
Okay.
So we could give me one more thing here, if you can hold it for about 2 minutes, and then we can do some questions on it, if that's okay. The only other point on that I wanted to make was your profit share. I think profit share, you should also think of it like a business. And along the lines of investing, if you do some math, I was doing this recently with someone in my world who got their first profit share check. It was $80. And he said, okay, $80, that's a pretty, she was like, $80. I know it's not much, but you know, it's first time ever, was kind of exciting, but it's only $80. It's, you know, it's not that great. And I said, yeah, it's amazing. $80. If you had to invest to make $80 a month, let's say $100 a month, because it's easier math. So $1,200 a year. Does anyone know what you'd have to invest into a stock or another typical investment in order to make $100 a month from that investment? Any rough guesses? Let's say on a 10% return annually, which is really good for most investment avenues. How much money would you need to invest to earn that $100 a month? Any guesses? Oh, I see some numbers in the chat. 10K, good. Yeah, roughly 10K. So 10K, you'd have to invest. So you'd have to make the 10K, save it somehow, have it there, and actually take action and invest it into something to earn $100 a month, which honestly don't know that many people that do that consistently. So to earn, and that's just the easy example at $100 a month. That's obviously going to keep now snowballing into bigger and better things as your profit share grows. So I think profit share also you can treat like a business, and it can help you really build easy tax or easy passive income from that. So you'd have to make 20K to have 10K. Exactly, James. So even more. So you'd have to find a way to make 20K and actually save that and then invest it. So really, really overlooked passive income stream that I think we should focus a lot more on, that you don't even need to spend any money to earn. So again, you could put that on your net worth statements as something that feeds you money every month. Definitely you should have your realtor business on your net worth statement. Laura, did you have a question around that?
I do, and it's around evaluating your real estate business. So how are you allocating to your net worth your real estate business? So obviously any asset that the real estate business holds, so any savings or whatever in there would be, but how are you calculating that?
Well,
So
what do we know that someone would pay? And I don't think there's an exact science to that. There's a lot of different variables, but I would say, you know, what would someone want to pay? What would they want to buy aside from any like hard assets of some sort that are in there? What would someone want to buy from your business? What would be worth something?
well, clearly your database and knowledge of what that database is annually returning for you in terms of, but let's say, just as you just used the example about the $10 a month, let's say you have a business that generates a GCI of $1 million a year. How would you monetize that on your net worth statement? Are you saying then it's $1 million business or like $1 million asset on your net worth, or is it some percentage of that? Like, how are you calculating?
I would calculate it on what you think someone would pay for it.
Okay.
Which to me comes down to how much is in your database consistently without you having to show up personally to do it every year. So what in there could actually, and you can start, like I said, if these things, you can just roughly guess it to start. Even guessing it and putting it on there would be helpful in your mindset, I believe, of thinking like a business owner. But if you really want to go in depth, I'd think about like how much of that business is going to show up if you're not there, because ultimately you're maybe selling this one day. You're not going to be in it every day if you sell it, probably. So that person or someone who buys it out is going to have to create income from it, regardless if you're there, right? So if I was looking to buy someone's business, I'd want to know that it's repeatable, or it's somehow coming. Like a farm area would be a great example. A farm area not tied to your personal brand would be a great example. So if you had a generic team brand of some sort, and you had a really, really good farm that was spitting out, 50 sales every year, that would be pretty repeatable, I would think, right? Okay. Versus me showing up and cold calling every day and expecting to make some sales out of it. That's not repeatable. If I'm not there, that's not repeatable. There's not really much of a system behind that. probably, right? So systems and database. So what's the model to make it repeatable, and what's the database size, and how much is that producing every year without you there, would be some of the things I would think about.
Okay, thank you. That's
That
helpful.
makes sense. Any other questions around the money side here? I'm gonna tie it in with time here in a bit, and we can kind of mesh the two together. So maybe I'll move on, and then we can there's a chart coming up in a couple slides that we can talk a bit more on this stuff. So a couple things, I think we've already talked about some of this. Achieve financial freedom, you need high income, you just need high passive income that outperform your spending needs. So I like to, it's great to save money. I like to make a lot of money, but I like to make it passively as much as possible. And that's the exciting part for me, is just more passive income streams, which again, like profit share is such an easy way to do that, and involves no money. So I think it's an important thing to focus on. More money, more problems. I think that's just something that's ingrained in our heads, is that you're going to have more problems. I've learned that you can get rid of a lot of problems with a lot of money. And so there's actually no reason to be thinking that way in terms of just staying small because it's safe and there's no problems in that world. There's a lot of problems when you don't have money, and you can't fix any problems when you don't have money. So the bigger and better thinking, I think thinking bigger is almost always better. And I just remind myself of that almost every day. And you can see that in celebrities. Sometimes their problems shouldn't be fixed, but you can see them solving a lot of them because they have some money behind them. Freedom of time. So this is one of my favorite sections here is around the mindset that we're kind of most of us are default questions that we ask ourselves in our minds. There's a lot of how questions. So when we think about buying your time back or finding a great life, and maybe adding on leverage to our teams or businesses, a lot of us generally think about how to do that, or how we're almost anything in life. Actually, you can think about running a team that makes 500 grand, let's say, in income. If your goal is to make 500,000 in commissions next year, most of our default questions that we ask ourselves is about how can we do that? How do I go generate the business to do that? How do I follow up properly to create that business? It's a really scarcity minded type question. It ultimately creates a lot of inaction and a lot of wants, and it's not a very easy question to answer. And it usually starts to think about all the things you have to do, and it becomes very overwhelming often to think about, there's a lot of stuff you need to do to create that. And yet if you ask yourself a different question, and you ask yourself the exact same question, but who do I need to know, or who do I need in my world, or who do I need to surround myself with in order to create that $500,000 business? It's a lot more abundant answers that are going to show up, a lot more expansive, and a lot more intentional answers are going to show up when you start thinking that way. And I am stealing this from another book, Who Not How. Has anyone heard that book or read that book? Yeah, a couple. Christina, nice. Yeah. Really awesome book, especially if you want to grow a larger business and have team members. But they don't even necessarily need to be team members. These are preferred vendors in the realtor world. These are other people that we're working with in some way. These are brokerages that we hang out in. Maybe it's sometimes the wrong brokerage you're in. Maybe it's that you need a different environment around you. You need to be on a team or off a team. The who's could be just your environment, right? And so the environment you're in, the people you work with, or the people you hire, or the people that work with you, those are your who's. But those are just a very much more expansive question to ask yourself, is, in almost anything in life, is who do I need to help me with this? And instantly, if you were $100,000 producer and you needed a $500,000 business, or you wanted a $500,000 business, very simplified answer, but you could really just bring on one person that's a $400,000 producer, and that now you're at 500,000 versus how am I going to go do that myself, and all the other overwhelming thoughts that come with that. And one thing I think a lot about that is and when I think about where I need a who in my life, is where I'm procrastinating. And I think that's the easiest way to think of it, is if you're doing things that you're, if I'm putting together this presentation, I would have put this together last night or this morning, because I would have done it last minute because this is not my thing to put together a presentation like this. I'm not very detail oriented. And yet I've had someone put this together a few weeks ago, and it was done because it's a good who in my life. And if I was doing this and I was doing it last minute, I would know that I need someone else in my life to make that better, because I would have procrastinated like crazy on it. And so you can think about that throughout your daily life in terms of what you're procrastinating on, probably because you need a who to help you with it. And it's probably not your sweet spot to work on that activity. And again, that's anything like that. Could be a cook, because you procrastinate on dinners and you don't end up creating great dinners or lunches or breakfast for your family. Maybe you need someone to help with that, or maybe you need a meal plan. A who could be the company that provides the meal plan. There's a whole bunch of ways to think about this in life. Certainly in our businesses, if you're procrastinating on things or not getting them done, it's because you need someone to help you with it. Yes, repeat the books. I will at the end. I might have to, I'll leave that there to remind myself. I'll go through some of those for sure. Who Not How is the one I was talking about here. Dan Sullivan is the author of that book. A couple of quick things here, and then I'm going to tie in the time and wealth aspect of it, and we can do some questions around that if you want. Just a couple of quick things. Following calendar, we focus a lot on this with our team. Is once you have a good who in your life, once I've had a good one in our life or our team life, we really focus on helping them with their calendar, getting their top 20% done daily, and doing that early on in the day typically works well. I found following a calendar is one of the most freeing things in life for myself. And scheduling a lot of things in there. Scheduling vacation time or free time is also very helpful. I also schedule thinking time, something I've done in the last couple of years, which really makes me be purposeful around on the business type of stuff and thinking about where we're headed. Another thing on this is that having a big business means it must be incredibly busy. A lot of people often will use that language when they talk to me, is you must be so busy. I'm so happy you got a few minutes of your time, sort of thing. And the best thing about a big business means you get to choose a lot more about where you get to spend your time. And so you never, I don't find I feel very busy. I felt way busier when I had only myself and trying to run everything in my business. I was way busier. At least in my mind, I might have spent the same amount of time or hours on things, or close to the same amount of time at least. But now I get to choose what I want to do. So I never feel busy, and I never feel like I'm, running around crazily. I feel pretty good and energetic because I'm doing things I actually enjoy doing and actually succeeding at for the most part. Okay, I'm gonna go through this graph, and then if you have any questions around this, we can do that. This is a graph I saw from Adam Hergenrother first, which was a few years ago. If we know him, he's a great agent down in the US, owns multiple offices and runs a really big team and expansion team. I think about this a lot in my business, almost monthly, when I kind of review things and where we're at, is the level of our thinking and how that shows up financially in our world. So this graph shows the different levels of thinking. So level 1 to level 7. And how far out we're looking into the future when we make financial decisions, and then the annual income that on average provides for that level of thinking. So level 1 thinking in terms of money might be that you're putting something, a time or money into lead generation, let's say, and you're thinking about what results you're going to get from that this week. So if I'm showing up to cold call today, what am I going to get from that this week? What appointments can I set today for this week so I can earn money this week? Not necessarily the appointment, but the money. You're hoping for that money to come in this week. So I know a lot of us aren't going to be going on an appointment expecting that to close this week, but that's probably because we're a little bit farther down on the income and the level of thinking here. But if you're of that mindset of expecting to get a return weekly, your average income is going to be about 10 to 30K. Not that exciting for most of us. As you go down the list and levels, you can see it goes up. Level 7, easiest probably person to think of in this might be like an Elon Musk, who we probably all know. When he started Tesla, you certainly was not expecting to make money on that week or that year or the next 5 years. Very abundant mindset with how he was built that company, and certainly probably expecting to make some money at some point. But as far as I know, they're only recently starting to make money out of that. I don't know if he's paying himself out of it. He might not even be. So very long-term outlook on it, very long-term mindset. If I think about this in terms of investing in real estate, flipping a property, often if you're looking to flip a property, you might make some money in the next 6 months, 12 months, like a quick flip type of investment. And in that case, you're more around the 100K sort of range. But if you were to hold that property for 10 plus years out, very often you're going to be making a lot more than 100K on that investment. So the farther out we can stretch our thinking in terms of when we expect returns on things, the more money you're going to make ultimately. And there's a balance to that. Obviously, there's needs to make money today in some cases, and yet a lot of our businesses, we don't have a long-term. What's our long-term money maker and the big wealth determiner? For me, I compare my podcast versus cold calling. The podcast we started making money after 2 years, I would say, roughly. We started to get good leads that turned into business. I really had no intention of making money on it at the start. And so the mindset in that is a very different one, and it shows up to earning a lot more money ultimately from it. And I can go through the number of things that have come from that podcast that have showed up in my business now. Not just transactions. I have team members that were initially an investor lead. Our top agent on our team was an investment lead from the podcast, and I don't even know how to quantify how much money that relationship's going to end up showing up in my life. It's into the millions probably, and many other things that have come from that. And it's primarily because the mindset was not to make money that week or that month or that year or in the next few years. And so the other thing on this too is that when you're in business relationships with people, it's very, very difficult to be in alignment if you're more than a few levels removed. So if you were looking at a 10-year outlook and you're looking to make $10 million or more, and you're hiring an administrator for your business, for example, they better have a 10 million plus mindset as well. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult to make decisions week to week or month to month with that person, because they're going to want money right away and they're going to expect returns really quick, whereas your mindset might be stretched farther out, and it's not going to lead to a very good synergy amongst you. And so getting anywhere two levels removed on this with anyone in your life is going to be pretty challenging. Marriages or spouses would be the same thing, right? It's very, very difficult to work with people that are too far removed on this. And I think a lot of us, and you could see this in our incomes, a lot of us are in the three months to 24 months out sort of range, right? And a lot of realtors are maybe in that income bracket too. And so, what in your business do you need to stretch out beyond the 24 months in order to start making? If you want to make the 500,000, 2 million range, let's say, what in your business are you thinking in terms of 4 to 10 years out, if anything? And if nothing, then what do you need to add in there that is a more long-term outlook? Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions around that, or maybe ahas or insights into their world and how that's shown up?
Yeah, Sandy, you mentioned hiring an administrator and not finding someone too far removed from where you are. I think, if you're having $10 million plus conversations, I think it's probably very difficult to find an operations manager or your first hire, your first admin that's going to fit that bill. When you're looking at that, are you considering kind of swapping that role multiple times on your way up to level 7, or do you think it's pretty feasible to be able to find someone right out of the gate there?
That's a good point. I think you're probably adjusting it as you go. I would imagine in most cases. I'm sure it's possible to find the person. It's pretty hard. I would also argue to find someone who's willing to work in that role. I think a lot of it comes down to what you're showing them, right? And how are you? If you were selling that role, let's say to the right person, they'd have to see the path to that pretty pretty clearly, right? If you were able to convince them to take a role, if you're hiring your first administrator, they're probably not making 100 plus grand. I would imagine. I'm not sure what they might make depending on your business, but they're probably not making over 100K. And if they're having a mindset of 10 million plus, they're going to need to see a path to that pretty clearly, right? And what that looks like. So I think, and I'll talk about that in a minute, just creating the right vision and sharing that openly and clearly would be a big part of that to help find that person. But I would agree, probably likely maybe not coming across that person at the start, and you might have to shift things around, or ultimately maybe you're not in business with them for that 10 plus year term, right? You're maybe hiring or firing or getting into new relationships along the way.
Andy, it's Christina. I wouldn't discount growing that person into that mindset though either.
Yeah, I would agree. It is challenging to grow someone along this. Sometimes it's really deeply rooted in their mindset, right? So it's doable for sure. And also sometimes takes some time for sure. Like it doesn't happen overnight because you're going into, someone's mindset here that's been often we're trained on this in our childhood, right? So you're going down into some deep rooted things there in their mindsets. Totally doable. I would expect it can take some time.
Agreed.
Hey, Sandy, it's Laura again. I have another question for you. So as you've sort of progressed and moved through your businesses and grown your businesses, and kudos to you on a massive amount of success, who have you looked to for, you mentioned Mark Loeffler when you first started, but who's really helped you either as a coach or a business mentor that's helped you to continue to grow your mindset and grow your businesses as you've moved and navigated through these stages?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Laura. I've had a MAPS coach since basically the day I started in this business.
Have you kept the same MAPS coach, or have you changed coaches? Or
no, I've changed coaches 4 times. I've had I had a period of 6 months where I didn't have a coach at all, in a business coach, and it wasn't my worst 6 months ever, but it wasn't a very good 6 months when I look back on it. And so that was like 3 years ago or so now.
Yeah.
And at that point I said, I'm just never going to not have a coach again. I wasn't really thinking necessarily that I would never have a coach before that. I enjoyed the coaching relationships. And ever since then, that 6 month period, I said, I'm just never not going to have a coach, because I think that having a coach is kind of a lifestyle decision, kind of like a diet. You're not going to hire a coach just for 6 months or go on a diet just for 6 months. You're obviously going to put the weight back on after, right? If you're trying to lose weight. Same thing with the coaching relationship. I think it's a lifestyle choice to have coaches.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of what was the thing that caused you to think about changing those coaches, or was it as you grew into different areas of your business, you wanted somebody else to help navigate that, or how did that transition happen?
Actually, and I should say too, the reason I got into coaching was because you mentioned Mark there. Mark was my team lead at the time. He put me into coaching on day one, basically. So I was thankful for that, because I don't really know if I would have got it in as quick otherwise. Probably wouldn't have. I'm an IS personality. That's my DISC profile. For those that know that, I'm not almost everyone that I in close business with, it has the D side to them. My wife included, and that's kind of complementary. So I think that works well, but I'm more quite relationship based. Like, I don't like firing people. I don't like firing coaches. Like, it's very uncomfortable. Better at it now than I was in times in the past, but it's an uncomfortable thing. So I generally will probably hold on to coaches too long if it's not working out well. And I think it just comes down to if you're getting results, like whatever results you want in your life, if that coaching relationship, and it might not be the coach's fault necessarily, but maybe that is the thing that needs to change in your life to get the results you want. Ultimately, the point of someone coaching you is to get the results that you're looking for in your life, right? So if you're not getting results, it's definitely worth considering changing coaches, I would say. And I would just audit that fairly regularly. For me, that's how I look at our team. Same thing. If we're bringing on someone in our team and we have an expectation for a certain results, a lot of our results for agents are at the beginning for sure are not around deals, they're around activities. So we focus on the activities, but ultimately the results have to show up at some point. And if the results aren't there, there's no point in being in business together. It's not working, right? There's something out of alignment there. So having clear, so with the coach relationship, right? Having clear goals and clear goals to hit. If you're not hitting them, it's probably something with the relationship that's not working. Did that help at all?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. I'll reach out to you off this.
I think same thing with people you bring on your team, right? Slow to hire, quick to fire. If it's not working, especially in the maps coaching world, I know it fairly well now. They're gonna just be great with it and put you into another conversation with a new coach probably anyways. So it's not like you're really hurting that person's feelings, I don't think, to let them know it's not working. They'll know it's not working too if they see the numbers.
Yeah, so that was the precipice behind you changing coaches, was you felt you weren't achieving the level of success that you wanted to, and that's why you switched?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
I've had the same coach now for I think 2.5 years, I want to say, which is like an executive maps coach. So they have there's a couple levels now within maps coaching. So he's an executive level maps coach. If that means any different, I don't know exactly, but it's a higher form of maps coaching, I guess. I'm lucky enough now to be in Gary's mastermind group, which is awesome. Like anything you can get with Gary he's an awesome educator. So anytime you can ever get to spend with him has really helped me in the last couple of years as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandy.
Another reason to have a big business so you can get into some of those circles. What do we have until 12:30, or I could go maybe 10 minutes beyond that if that's okay, because I have a couple more sections to go through here, and we can touch back on that wealth and time if we want, but I want to make sure I get through what we've got here. A couple more quick sections. Ultimately, and I put these sections in the same order, because ultimately once you get time freedom and money freedom, you can now spend a little more time around the right relationships. Obviously, being in the right relationships, coaching relationships as an example, or otherwise, it's important right from the beginning. But you can really start to choose a little more once you get more freedom of time and money. It's hard to be really picky about who you get to hire, for example, if you don't have the wealth behind it or the money behind it to afford those people. You get a lot more choice once you start to build freedom of money and time. And a great way to attract the right people is just being a great go-giver and instead of a go-getter. I think that's an easy distinction to make in our minds is you end up getting what you give anyway. So start with the giving part, be a great who for others. So we talk about finding your who's, and everyone's a who for someone in their lives, or multiple people typically. So how are you showing up to them, and are you being a great who? And who do you want to be a hero for? And vulnerability. I don't have time to go too deep on these things here, but being vulnerable is always something I've found really works well in leading people. Just being open and sharing challenges gives them an opportunity to actually help you out. I find great rapport building once you do that, and I've kind of just been a little more proactive around that in the last couple of years, and had some really great relationship building because of it. And learned that from another book or another author, Brene Brown. She talks about that a lot. There's actually a Netflix special you can watch on that. That's kind of interesting to learn a lot more about vulnerability and more proactively being vulnerable in your relationships and the impact it can have. You become the top 5 people you become the average of the top people or top 5 people you surround yourself with. I think that's totally true. I also think it's a little twist on it is to just become the top 5 people you actually give time or money to. It's one thing to sit around the group of people. It's another thing to actually actively engage with them and give something to them of value. So you'll get a lot more out of who you surround yourself with if you actually proactively engage with them and help them get whatever they want. Right? They're going to be a lot more open to giving you what you want through life. Ultimately, when you create freedom in all those areas, you get to focus more on your purpose, which is what I think a lot of us want to do in real estate. And a lot of us have great purposes, whether that be like community or churches or charitable endeavors of some sort. A lot of us want to spend time in these areas. You can do it at a much higher level if you have a lot more time or a lot more money and the right people around you to help you do it. So I think thinking about your purpose is really important. If you don't have, who knows what an MVVBP is? I know some of us definitely do. Does anyone want to share what that acronym is? I don't know if that's an actual KW acronym or if that's just a general acronym that's out there, but certainly used quite a bit in KW world. No one want to share? Mission, vision, values, beliefs, perspective. So if you're in here right now and you don't have this for your business, whether you're on your own or you have a team or anything in between, certainly should spend a few minutes or more than that, probably getting a clear mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspective written out for your business, because it's not only going to give yourself clarity on where you're headed and where your path is, but it's going to show up in your marketing. It's going to show up in the people you attract. It's going to show up in every area of your business. And it's also going to retain them a lot more. So if you were looking at growing a team, let's say, and you're looking at hiring people, yet there's other teams in your office or in your area that have a lot more value than you, potentially a lot more value than you, because they've been operating a lot longer, or they have way more leads coming in, etc. If you have the right purpose the right mission, vision, values, beliefs, perspective that is in alignment with that person's life, they're going to choose you over that other big team anyways. If you don't have clarity on this and you're just sitting there trying to attract people with a very, very rough version or no version of that, it's going to be nearly impossible to attract them, because if you don't have enough value in the team yet or in the business you're building, they're probably going to choose another option, right? So coming up with this and then ideally tying it into whatever you're excited about in your personal life is a really big game changer in terms of how you attract business and attract talent for your business. Another thing around this is just collaboration over competition. I was pretty competitive at times in life. Played a lot of sports growing up. I like being competitive. I'm sure we're all competitive in certain ways. Some of us super competitive. That's a competitive type of business. And it's great to be competitive. It's also a heck of a lot greater and way more awesome things can happen in your life if you're more towards the collaboration side of things. One of the reasons I love KW, and I'm sure a lot of us know this, is just the collaboration that happens naturally and proactively collaborating with people. Like Chris Knighton and I, for example, we're in the same market generally, the Hamilton, Niagara regions. We do a lot of business around there, and we're about the same production level pretty much for the last couple of years, plus minus a little bit as we go. But we talk all the time around what we're doing with our teams. We often interview the same people. We share what we thought about that person as we went through the KPA process. We pass back referrals of people a lot of times in terms of like, they're not a fit for me, but I think maybe they'd be great on your team for some reason. And I think probably a big part of why we're up there in the rankings, at least around KW Canada and continually growing our businesses, is that we share a lot of stuff together. I think a lot of us are a lot better off by collaborating versus being always in that competitive mindset. A competitive mindset, when you think about it, is pretty close to scarcity mindset in a lot of ways. The collaboration is a heck of a lot more abundant thinking, and you'll create so many more big things in life if you can spend more time on that side. Not to get rid of competition altogether, but collaboration is a really great thing that, especially if you are purposeful around building more of that. And a couple more quick slides to go through here. Oops. Yeah, competitive culture really leads to some great results. Collaboration leads to even greater results. Talked about that. A couple of just concluding questions now. So are you thinking in who's versus how's? How does that show up in your life, business or otherwise? Easy, simple question. Just change in the first part of the question. And if you ever taken coaching skills camp, you'd learn a lot about this too. It's a great course. You'd learn a lot about who, what, where, when, why, or how, and the difference between what those questions bring, what type of answers they bring, which can be with clients or in your inner mindset and the questions you're asking yourself as you go about your days. Whose is much more expansive. Who are you being a who for, and are you being a hero for them? This is different, but it's very, very close to that same thing. Who are your who's, and are you being a hero for them? And who's helping you build freedom in these areas of your life? You know, who do you need in your life to help you with these things? Is it a coach? Is it an environment? Is it a partner? Is it someone else in your life to help you with any of these elements? That's a great question to consider too. Who do you need around you to help you through these areas? There's my information. You can connect with me pretty easily anywhere on social, etc. Reach out to me anytime if you have questions beyond this. We have some time here if you want to do a little bit more Q&A. I got till 12:45 and I gotta go, but we can do 7-8 minutes if anyone has any more thoughts or insights around this stuff that they want to share.
I think this is awesome, Sandy, personally. It's a nice little gift wrapped package of information and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you for sharing it with us.
Well, I appreciate you for being here. So thank you.
And I'll
Sandy,
just,
sorry, go ahead, Christina.
I was just going to tell you that Rob's in my downline.
There you go. Keep building it.
Yeah, I was about to say, Sandy, a lot of people have been sending messages asking, can you recap a book list that you were?
Oh yeah.
A lot of people want to read. So if you can give a quick recap.
I tell everyone, a lot of the leaders on our team that are showing up more leadership based, I find it's all because they're reading more, or they're self-educating a lot more than others. I don't have an MBA. I have people on our team that have MBAs. I don't have an MBA by any means. I've dropped out of university after a couple of years. I don't have any degrees. I do actually have a diploma in sport development, which is not useful at all. But I have very limited formal education and a lot of self-education. And everyone who's growing to be bigger leaders in my organizations are self-educating more than the others. What are the books? The books were, I talked about Rich Dad Poor Dad. That book absolutely changed my life massively. And a lot of people I know it has done so as well for them. I mentioned Who Not How. Dan Sullivan wrote that one. I mentioned Miracle Morning, Hello World, which is totally not a health book necessarily, but it does definitely have some health elements to it, but it was kind of around that health topic. There's a Miracle Morning for Realtors book, specific for realtors. I actually haven't read that one, but you could also find that one. And I'm not sure if I mentioned any others. But those are some books to start with at least. The Go-Giver is a book. Yeah, you're right, Carol. Thanks. I haven't actually read it. I've heard of it. I haven't read it before. Bob Burke. Perfect. Bob Burke is the author of that one. Any other thoughts or questions or anything?
Hi, Sandy. It's Jeff Luciano from Keller Williams Advantage. Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, say the same thing, which is thank you. I know a lot of us, myself included, were all you saw were the black boxes with the names. Certainly in my case, and I'm sure for a bunch of other people, it didn't mean that we weren't listening and making notes and so forth, but that maybe some of us aren't that presentable. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I took a bunch of notes, and yeah, very much appreciate you taking the time.
Awesome. Thanks for being here and engaging a bit there. Appreciate it.
All right. If there's nothing else, let me wrap up by saying again, in behalf of everyone, thank you, Sandy, for joining us and sharing. I got something. I'm going to share. I got be a go-giver, you'll become a go-getter. Sandy Mackay. So thank you, thank you very much for sharing that. Let me leave everyone with what's happening next time. Well, next week, this is going to happen, and this is how we're going to close. And again, thank you so much for being here, and you'll have a great day. Watch this quick video, and we'll see you here.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about Mega Camp. It's where top producing professionals put aside specific time to work on their business.
8,000 of the best realtors in the business.
All right, let's get going.
Bye. Have a great day.